What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Ad Podcast coming to you from IAB here in Palm Desert. We've got Lou Paskalis, the chairman and founder of AJL Advisory. Lou, thanks so much for coming on and chatting with us a little bit.
No, Dylan, always a pleasure. Great to see you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to IAB this year. I know you're a veteran, so.
Yeah, many IABs. So 35 years on the client side, running media for big companies like Bank of America, American Express, E&J Gallo. Now I'm a consultant advising both brand marketers and tech companies on their go-to-market strategy and how to rationalize the investment. IAB ALM is always a great industry event. You see old friends, you make new friends, you talk about the industry's challenges, and you come away really refreshed and excited about the future.
Awesome. So what's the main takeaway that you're bringing back to clients from a POV perspective so far that you've heard this week?
I think the main message is everyone, buy side, sell side, tech side, is open for business to figure out how we collaborate and take full advantage of what AI is going to do and how we go to market. Gone are the days when we're doing bolt-on projects where we might be doing email marketing with AI, but we're still working on the same overall assembly line for marketing. And people are talking about completely reorienting how they make marketing, how they staff for marketing, what the role of the agency is, and how we really harness data to create more relevant content.
I love that. You know, before we rolled the camera, we were talking a little bit about a passion point of yours, which is the newspaper industry and the news space. We talk about pressure from AI is kind of going, the main takeaway that I got today was there's huge investment in AI in data centers and hardware. There's huge investments in compute. But the thing that these LLMs are training their entire operation on, which is the content of the internet, essentially, they feel it's like it's open season. It's basically a free opportunity. That's eventually going to just end up with bots talking to bots. So what do you say to those companies?
So let's call it what it is. When you're scraping content from a publisher site, that's theft. It's actually theft. And we went through a similar thing in the music industry in the 40s and 50s until they really figured out the rights, which were complicated and convoluted. But you can't take intellectual property from a publisher who employs reporters, who employs writers, who employs photojournalists, ingest it into your LLM, compose it with other IP, and then serve it up without giving both credit, acknowledgement to that publisher, and money for the work. So if you're not paying if you're not paying news platforms for that content, they can't put journalists in the field. And if the journalists can't be in the field, they can't give you the perspective of what's going on the ground in, let's say, Minneapolis. All you're going to do is you're going to get citizen journalism, which is not bad, but you really need trained professionals who are very committed to finding the truth. And right now, AI needs to recognize, the owners of the big AI platforms need to recognize that there is no gas in the tank. If they put publishers out of business and new content isn't created, there's nothing for them to scrape and train on. And it is a real immediate issue. And we think Congress really needs to act, and the American consumer needs to demand that these big companies actually pay for fair use.
You've seen a few companies get out ahead of it. Disney came and did a deal with OpenAI this year. It seemed like maybe a defensive posture. They came to them because they wanted to get ahead of some of these issues. But that doesn't make a lot of room for the smaller publishers that don't have the scale and the opportunity to get a meeting with these guys. So how can we fix it for the smaller publishers that don't have a Barry Diller who can walk in and kick down the doors at OpenAI?
Yeah, in the spirit of in the spirit of IAB, IAB's it's your 30th anniversary of IAB. I would hate to tell you how many of the IAB leadership meetings I've been in those 30 years, but suffice it to say the majority. And look, the IAB's number one superpower has always been about creating standards. And so we need to start with standards. And then once you have them, it's easy for the big guys, to your point, Dylan, to say, okay, we're going to follow this, let's sign the contract. The small guys need to band together, work with a consortium, work with an advocacy group, work with a trade association and say, okay, we'll create a marketplace around our content and the money will flow through it, just like ASCAP or the mechanisms in the music industry that do the exact same thing with royalties, right? So there's plenty of models. The challenge, though, is right now there doesn't seem to be any enforcement when it comes to, again, the theft of content. And you do have these one-off deals where publishers are cutting deals. The New York Times did a deal not too many months ago with Amazon for the same purpose, but you're still in experiment phase. And meanwhile, while they're experimenting with a few platforms, Google had proudly announced today from stage that they were working with 3 publishers. Great. Well, what about the other 300,000 publishers around the globe where their content is getting scraped? So this is an urgent imperative. There is no ambiguity about what's right and wrong. You know, it's just like taking a loaf of bread from the grocery store and sneaking it out. You are stealing, pure and simple. And we as an industry need government support, and we need to come together and say, no more of this. You need to pay for the privilege. And frankly, it's going to be better for those AI companies too, because right now they have massive contingent liability that they're just building up and building up
Yeah,
and building
it's like the
up.
music company. They just waited for the right moment to,
Exactly.
you know, figure it all out.
You're exactly right.
Well, I love the comparison to the music industry and kind of the Napster move fast and break things model. So what came from the music industry was the old business model completely destroyed, lots of disruption, lots of change, but then the arrival of something new
Right.
that essentially reprioritized touring and merch and some of these other areas, and then Spotify and streaming just basically became a marketing engine. You know, these
Yeah.
artists don't make a ton of money there, but it's a great opportunity for the user to have the entire, you know, record, the history of music in your pocket. Can you think of any, you know, models that you think will arise from the ashes, so to speak?
We actually had a great example of that today. Kendall Toole is now a creator.
Yeah,
I first
Peloton
got
girl.
to know her when I was riding Peloton.
Same.
And she
I
was
miss
one of
her.
my she was one of my favorite instructors.
Yep.
And in the last year and a half since she left Peloton, she's gone out and she told the IAB audience today that she is making revenue from 8 or 9 different revenue streams, and she's got all these LLCs set up. She's got recipes over here. She's got food over here. She's got clothing over here. She's got her core business, which is fitness.
Yep.
But because she doesn't have any legacy business model, she very seamlessly has done that. And I have a friend who manages similar creators. It's the same thing. It's multiple revenue streams that in and of themselves don't provide viability. But when you bring them together in an ecosystem, they more than reward you. But you've got to, as my friend says, work your jelly across the bagel. You got to do all that. Legacy publishers have these revenue models where they have these big sales organizations and these very specific KPIs in these channels, but not those channels, and they're not nimble. And you see things like Jim Acosta leaving CNN, right? And all of a sudden he's got a Substack, and his Substack now has a much bigger audience on a daily active user base than CNN.
It's crazy,
right? And so
yeah.
you're
Or even like a
yeah.
Tucker gets fired
Yeah.
from Fox, and he's got 6 million subscribers on YouTube now.
Right, and there's a lot of dynamics there.
Sure.
People in this era that we're in trust individuals more than institutions, which isn't necessarily a great thing,
Yep.
but it's a reality that we're in. And so I think we need to follow that model of saying, okay, we're going to have multiple revenue streams. We're going to need to make sure that anywhere our content could be used, we are monetizing it. And if we're not getting fair value for it, we need to act quickly. Otherwise, we're going to run out of oxygen.
Yeah, you brought up another point. The publishers are under more pressure now, not just from AI, but they're also losing talent either by will or by force to create independent journalists that then become bigger than maybe their parent companies or at least competitive.
They're now incubators
Yeah.
for talent that will compete with them. And that's unfortunate because you need infrastructure. If you're going to go put a reporter on the ground in Ukraine, she doesn't just go there by herself. There's a crew, there's security, there's an exit strategy if she has to leave there. And you can't do that as an individual creator. I think we're going to have to disaggregate to reaggregate in a new business model, and it will be messy for a while. And I think we're going to be in this era, which was prevalent at the dawn of my career, which was also the dawn of time. We talked about media pointillism. And if you remember Seurat, the artist that painted with the dots, the idea of media pointillism is that you source information from many different sources and you paint your own picture in your head. Well, then we got lazy. The internet really made it easy to just go to my 2 or 3 favorite publishers and read what I wanted to read. and I didn't corroborate it. I didn't sort of fact check it. I didn't get
stuck in
different
your
views. Yeah.
ecosystem. They call it your
filter bubble.
Yeah, your filter bubble. Yep.
And I think now we're going to go back to, okay, I follow these 5 or 6 creators. These 2 or 3 agree. This guy's saying something that's an outlier. I have no idea what she just said. So my point of view, my worldview is going to come from these 3 this time, but maybe those 2 next time, right? And I think we're going to have to be much more entrepreneurial in how we consume and process information and seek the truth. Unfortunately, I think there's going to be people who do that, and then people who just look at TikTok videos and confuse them with news.
Yeah, they just take the algorithm, whatever it spoon feeds them.
Yeah, and I'm very, very worried about that.
Yeah, well, not the greatest note to let up on, but any optimism that you could share with the viewers on any things that are coming out of IAB that are bright spots?
Yeah, I'm very, very excited about what's going on with what we used to call the creator economy. We just talked about it a little bit, but I really see now that we can serve audiences in a way that actually resonates. Advertising had become too formulaic. People tend to skip ads whenever they can. They ignore that right
they
rail.
They don't have a relationship with the actors.
Right.
It's just somebody that's pretty or might look like them or might have attributes, but
Exactly.
they don't identify them unless it's a celebrity.
And when you're a creator, your loyalty is to the audience that you created. When you're an executive creative director at an agency, your loyalty is to the client.
Yep.
So if the client really doesn't connect to culture, you execute what the client wanted and you get low engagement. But if you go to creators and you give them license to say, I don't think that's right for my audience, and you respect that, they will do a much better job serving their individual audiences and allowing you, as I like to say, to engineer relevance into every interaction. But you gotta let the creators be the creators. And what I mean by that, don't hand them your style guide. Don't hand them your brand guidelines. Let them go out and contextualize your message for their audience. And not only will you do better with the general market, there are many, many creators who serve specialty markets, people of color, people of different sexual orientation, people in a geographic area, people who are fashion. I'm a Formula One fanatic. And
interests, affinities.
Right, right. And so embrace that. Give them more license. Don't be strict to the point where they can't go out and serve that audience, and watch your engagement come up. And then you can move your agency from a contractor model to a general contractor model where they help you manage a portfolio of creators.
I haven't thought about it in that way. Well, I think they say the riches are in the niches. That's a quote that I've heard recently around.
That's a line to close on.
Awesome. Thanks, Lou. Really
enjoyed
appreciate your time.
Thanks
so
for the
much.
opportunity. Thanks, everybody.